I wanted to. Hello.
Hello, everybody. Okay, so there is nobody.
There will be someday.
Okay, let me
One
just
day.
say. I'm just gonna say it on Instagram again.
Okay,
God, this is a disaster. Sorry about this.
you're fine.
So,
So
what happened? If anyone watches, like we just filmed an entire broadcast, but it was unlisted.
it's just us talking. I was like, oh, that's pretty low, but we're new. We're starting out, but it was literally unavailable everywhere.
I'm just gonna go see it on YouTube.
Yep. Really unavailable. I'm gonna say hello to myself.
There
We
we
can
go.
test all the things. I was gonna say, I think perhaps did you check your microphone when you signed on? When you did the
Is it not
settings?
working?
Because when you dropped it, I didn't hear a drop. So I was wondering if it was connected to the wrong source.
One moment. It doesn't. Oh, okay. Hold on. Yes, I think I can do it from here. Oh, yeah. Okay. Can you hear me better now?
Now, yeah, that's even better.
Yeah. Okay.
It was not bad before, but now it's perfect.
Okay, perfect. Let me just post this and apologize to the world.
I will too. I'm so sorry.
So, do we have a viewer? Is this me?
It's either me or you because I'm also watching it.
Okay, I've stopped mine. So, let me just post again. Okay, second try. Second try live with. Okay. Okay.
Okay, now we've got our Instagrams. We promised that, in the future we'll have more of a cohesive schedule and plan, but we're still learning. This is our first time on StreamYard.
Yeah.
And we're trying it out. And, we'd even decide to go kind of live last minute today. So bear with us, please. We're under construction.
Yeah. Yeah, this wasn't really quite a planned
adventure.
Stream. We were just planning to test it out, but I guess the testing worked really well.
We figured we might as well really test it, because if we just fake test it, then we might not actually know all these issues. So actually, we did do what we came here to do, which is find potential problems and fix them.
Yeah.
So I'm happy for that.
Okay, so I have a question for you. Now that you kind of heard the story,
yes.
So for our viewers, or lack thereof, I guess the story. I think that people really just know about this at this stage.
Yeah,
so
at least the basics of who they are and what.
Now that you kind of know this, how do you feel about the art versus artist thing? Do you think people should support Shanna's art, or should we separate art from the artist? Or
I hate to say this, and this is kind of like my hot take on art versus the artist, but I think it depends on how good the art is. And I know that's obviously subjective, but there's certain like directors, for example, or musicians that have done things that I obviously disagree with, but their music almost transcends the person themselves. Like their music takes on a whole different meaning for people. And so to ask them to stop listening to it, I don't know if that's fair or like the right choice. I don't know. For example, I always hear like Michael Jackson songs on all the time still at restaurants and places, and I'm like, is this okay, like, to listen to this and enjoy this anymore? Like, I watched Finding Neverland, and I'm like, I'm horrified. But the music is that him. And then I go, in my mind, I go, well, the music was so good and such a transformative thing for people at that time, so I can give it more of a pass. But someone who's on YouTube making art, I give it less of a pass. And I don't know if that's a fair judgment. It's just kind of what goes through my head when I start to think about that. Or like if I personally like something, I'm more willing to give it a second chance if they've made a mistake. But if I don't care for it, it's almost like, from me, there's no forgiveness because I wasn't that into the art anyways. And that's probably a bad take, but that's like the honest truth of how I see it and how I usually, like, for example, not Woody Harrelson, the other guy who's really bad. He makes movies. He's like super quirky. He made Midnight in Paris.
Oh yeah, Woody Allen.
Woody Allen. There you go. Woody Allen. I don't really care for his movies, so to cancel him, I'm like, cancel, bye. But if it was, Quentin Tarantino, I'd be like, I gotta really like weigh the options here, look into it deeper, and find out. And it's like, I don't know if that's the best way to do it, but that's kind of how I handle it.
I feel like are you talking when you said about Michael Jackson? Are you talking about that documentary that was a Channel 4 Neverland? Apparently,
Yes.
that was not. There isn't really much proof. So the producer kind of came a little bit under fire for that. Because apparently there were some things that were kind of sort of stated as if they happened, but they didn't really know. So I feel like it's not quite a done deal that Michael Jackson did what he was accused of in that. But I've not really watched the movie, so I'm not sure.
It was crazy. It's a 2-parter, so it's like 2 documentaries basically, and well, it's hard to get the sentiment unless you watch it, but I really think it's like at least 90% the parents' fault of the kids, because like they sent their children who are like 10 years old to go spend time with this performer, and I guess you'd think it's safe, I suppose, but like how do you guarantee that? But they would be like in Hawaii on vacation, just the little boy and like Michael Jackson. I'm like, why would the parents be okay with this? So it's almost like somewhat their responsibility to, make sure like, okay, my kid's 10. He needs to be in school. He doesn't need to be on a, Hawaiian vacation with a superstar. Like, as weird as that seems now, it's like, why would you allow that to happen? And I don't know. I believe them. Like, because I talked to 2 of the alleged victims and they seemed very credible. In my opinion, the one guy was a super successful choreographer who like worked with NSYNC and Britney Spears and has a life outside of what happened. But I don't know. I just felt compelled by it. And it did make me feel weird. But I also like Michael Jackson's music. So it's like, does it benefit anybody to not listen to it myself? I don't know. Or is there a separation?
I feel like it's also the fact that he's dead that kind of comes into play here, because at this point he obviously can no longer profit. Well, someone like Creepshow art can profit. Because she's still alive. So, is it ethical to support her when we know what we know at this point, essentially helping her make more money, knowing, the things she's done to Emily and who knows what else she's done that is not common knowledge at this point. But I feel like with Michael Jackson, like if these things would have come out during his lifetime and he lost his status as a musician, I suppose, if he didn't get gigs, if people didn't, that would be a direct consequence that I feel like would make a big difference, in the sense that at least he's not making money. Just at least people don't support someone who's done terrible things actively give him more money. But at this point, being that he's dead,
it's less like egregious to listen to, his songs. And I think also the way we think about, at least in America, like we think about the founding fathers and all of our history. I mean, if you were to really look at those people and what they believed in and our history of slavery and such, it's probably horrendous, but we still have them featured in monuments and money and all those places. It's like, where do you draw the line where, well, at that time in history, things were different, therefore we can forgive this, action to look at what they did accomplish? It's a very interesting question, and I think it's a very nuanced response. So, and it's also like, with going back to Creepshow art, her mental health, if there is a chemical imbalance somehow that forces her to be like this, it's not just a choice she's making necessarily on her own. How much do you weigh that into it too? Like, where it's like, well, that's what mental illness looks like. Perhaps, I'm not saying she has it or not, but mental illness could look like a negative person. So it's like, how much do you weigh that?
I do definitely think that basically, hold on one sec.
You're good. My cat's here on the chair. Come here. Welcome back. I'm trying to get my cat to come up and join us. Come here.
I do think you're bringing up an interesting point there, because I do feel like mental health is sort of like talked about, at least on social media, and not just social media, actually also in the news and stuff, but it's talked about in a way that seems to be like a quirky little character trait, while it's not. Like, mental health can be actually debilitating for people.
Sure.
And at least something that I've experienced is like depression and anxiety. It's not like a quirk, it's something that just gets in the way of you being able to do things. And I feel like people there was this like very welcome trend, I guess, that was intended as, let's not make this taboo, let's make this a normal thing, because most people have something or what.
Sure.
I don't know, maybe not, but like
I think so.
I think it's
form. Yeah.
So it definitely started with the right intentions, but I feel like it's made it so that now it's just this little fun thing, and it's not fun. Like, I don't think depression, anxiety, being bipolar, having schizophrenia or anything, even like, I don't know if you know about this channel called Dissociated on YouTube. This is someone who has DID, or dissociative identity disorder. It used to be called multiple identity disorder. So it's someone who, because of some people who have this disorder, have essentially had some form of trauma that has essentially made it so they dissociate in their mind. So, and the dissociation is so strong that they created separate personalities.
Got it.
So even that is something that people have glamorized a little bit on YouTube. There's lots of channels being like,
and TikTok,
switching and whatever.
Totally.
And it's not like, while I appreciate that they are coming more into the mainstream, and but all of the mental health issues, and I'm not talking about the ID here, but like in general, I like that people are talking about them, but I don't think we should make them quirks. They're not quirks, they're hard to live with. And
agreed. I feel like this happens a lot, and I feel the same way, not to go off topic, but I feel the same way about plastic surgery. And it's almost in an effort to normalize something to make people feel better about getting it, but then it almost becomes like you're expected to get it now. It's like it's gone so far the other way that now you're weird if you don't get plastic surgery, or it's weird if you don't talk about your mental health. And before, it was so secretive, and you had to pretend like, oh, I didn't do anything, or I don't have anything wrong. And now, instead of finding somewhere in the middle where it's like, oh, if I have something wrong, I feel comfortable to go and seek help or go to therapy and talk about that openly. But now it's like, I have to watch my switching on camera and profit from it. And to me, we need to find the middle ground of complete hiding and so open that it's like not even, people don't even think it's a big deal anymore, because the problem still exists where people aren't getting help either way, because it's either too afraid to, because you're embarrassed that people will find out, or everyone has mental illness. no one needs to seek help because we all have it. And I think both
Yeah.
issues are bad. And I think it takes away from some of the real problems of, at least in the United States, like access to mental health care that's affordable. We're not talking about that because we're talking about, I don't know, more of like the acceptability of it. And it's like, yes, we accept it, I think, at this point. Now let's find solutions to help fix the problem, not just accept that we have the problem. Like, I think we've accepted it. We've accepted it now. Let's now fix it and find out how to live a better way, while having these disorders and such. And I haven't seen that conversation as widespread as acceptance.
Yeah, and even acceptance, I don't think it's quite. I don't think we're quite there yet, because
Yeah.
even that is seen to the in a way that it's basically like, yeah, oh, haha, you have depression. Okay, so are you coming tomorrow? Are you coming to work tomorrow or whatever? Like, people still like they just think it's something you can do in your free time. It's something that they don't understand that these are things that impact work, that impact relationships. So it's not just a little like hobby that you have. It's not, I feel like the conversation has kind of made it almost fun when it's not. And
Yeah.
I don't love that. um I guess that's what, but not to mention that even you say that it's not even just the US, like in terms of Europe. While we have some better access to healthcare, I don't think it's nearly good enough. And also, it does not include like mental health. Like, maybe there are a few things that you can do for free, but like more than having just a consultation, I don't think that it's free. So I think if you want to go to be a therapist, you probably do have to pay for that. And when it's like subsidized by the government or something, it's really hard to get access to that too. So
Sure.
at least, obviously it depends on which country, because it's not all the thing, but
Yeah.
it's not as easy as people might think. So yeah, from that perspective, it's definitely like
Yeah.
a conversation I would like to see that is turned around on its head, because it can't just be a fun little thing. It has to be taken seriously.
Yeah, I think too, it's an excuse as well sometimes, or used as an excuse. And we were talking about this situation with Creepshow art as like why you're doing something wrong, that could hurt someone else. And you go, well, it's a mental illness. It's like, yeah, well, you still hurt me. It doesn't matter really. Like, it's where do you draw the line where, okay, yes, I can understand this is a mental illness or a mental problem, and part of your reasoning comes from that, and you're making decisions with that, those glasses on, but also taking responsibility and making sure that the people that you're hurting along the way are compensated in some way, apologize to. It's not just like, well, I have this, so you can never be mad at me for any choice that I make, because that doesn't help either. That's just like, oh, I'm depressed, so I killed somebody. Like, that's not going to be okay. That's not okay for that person who's hurt in the process. So I think it's finding that too, like how much responsibility does someone take with mental illness, and how much I'm trying to think of the word. I guess responsibility is probably the best word for that. Like, how much do you take of that as your person? But then you can say, in my head, I go through all these scenarios. I'm like, okay, so let's say you have some sort of mental illness, right? You go and do something like controversial. You say something controversial online, and then you say, well, I have a mental illness, but I have no access to healthcare. And that's a valid excuse. So what happens then? Do you take away the platform, or do you not take away the platform? It's like, I don't know. It's hard. It's like, to me, it's like, depends if I like that person or not, which is like kind of unfair, but that's kind of where it comes down to. Like, well, some fans will stand them and some won't. And then I guess you just have to deal with, there's no perfect world in which all, you have a rubric in which you can decide if the person should be like held up or not.
It's interesting because, like, I feel like the mental health aspect can explain something and be like, okay, so these are the reasons why. You can provide like context, but at the same time, it's not like a valid excuse. Like, even if you have a mental health issue, you know that what you're doing is wrong. You know that So while we understand where it comes from, it doesn't necessarily mean that
Yeah.
your um, agency is taken away. You can still
Sure.
choose to do the correct thing,
Yeah.
while it may be harder sometimes for people with different mental health issues. I don't know. I
Yeah.
just think it's definitely interesting. It's definitely like a big conversation to have, and I
Hmm.
feel like in the same token as Creepshow talking about her being homeless and using that as sort of a cop out from the
Hmm.
situations. Um, she also talked about having uh, anxiety and depression. And while I do believe her, and I have struggled with these things myself, I also don't think that's like uh, it will not never be enough of a reason, like
Hmm.
you must take responsibility for your actions regardless of your mental health issues.
Yeah. Yeah. Agreed.
And I feel like she definitely tried to weaponize several things like that. Like,
Hmm.
all of her connections, money. She tried to weaponize money because she would always like donate money. She donated to me. She donated to someone that I know on YouTube a lot. Emily. She does like legal content. Emily, I forget what
Mm.
her last name is. But anyways, she was always in her live streams, always donating like a lot of money, and this was by no means the only like she did this a lot. So she weaponized like
Sure.
relationships, money, the fact that she was homeless, the fact that she basically had like anxiety and depression. Like, so okay, so at which point do we draw the line? And I refuse to just give her um
Yeah.
any absolution for that, for those reasons, any of those reasons really. I think they were all a strategy, and I am sure that she does have mental health issues. I just
Hmm.
don't think it's what she said it is. I just
Yeah.
don't think it is anxiety and depression. I think this is something else.
Hmm.
And
And
either
she may not even be aware of it. It's
she
maybe
may
not
not be
like,
aware of it. She did say
yeah.
that she was going to therapy and stuff. If she, but I don't know if she was. But if she was
Hmm.
going to therapy, she probably should know, and she was honest with her therapist. She would know probably that
Yeah.
if she had something else. But I'm convinced that she does have something. But I think it's something more,
Different.
um,
Yeah.
yeah, different. They're all serious. It's just not
Yeah.
the same thing.
Well,
But
this
yeah.
this topic too is something I talk about a lot on. Well, I did in the beginning of my channel, and I do talk about it on TikTok more than I talk about it on YouTube. But with people with the medical stuff, that they say that they have these illnesses that are physical, like they have, they'll say they have cancer, they have these like very rare disorders, and it turns out most likely they don't, based on kind of their own admissions later on. And you think like, well, why am I upset by that? Or maybe it's not physical, but it's actually a mental disease. Why was I more willing to help for a physical disease and not help them with this mental disorder? But it also comes down to lying. It's the lies I think bother people, and including myself. And I think that it's taking away from the people who really do have the disorders and confusing people about what those disorders actually look like. So if someone says that they have cancer, but they're dancing and going on vacation and drinking alcohol and smoking cigarettes, it's like, what? Like, okay, you feel less sorry for people who actually have the disorder, because now you're thinking, or the disease, because you're thinking like, oh, well, she's partying it up. It must not be that bad.
Mhm.
So for those reasons is why I get upset about it. But I can also understand that Munchausen's, like, it's an actual diagnosable condition in which people believe or need attention so badly that they make up medical problems to get that attention that they didn't get from childhood or from wherever. Or even the worse, more horrible disease is Munchausen's by proxy, which is where you have a child or a dependent that you are making sick for attention for yourself. That's like, I don't know if you've seen the documentary. It's a great documentary called Mommy Dead, Mommy Dearest.
Wow.
It's about Gypsy Rose. Are you familiar with that case at all? Gypsy Blanchard?
No.
You should definitely, I'll send you the link afterwards. But basically, it happened in like Louisiana or Kentucky or somewhere in the South in the United States. And this girl, her whole life from like birth, she was told that she couldn't walk, that she had like cancer, that she, needed a feeding tube, all the stuff, that none of it was true. She was totally a healthy, normal child, but her mom put her in these scenarios, told the doctor she had all these symptoms, told the hospital they had all these symptoms. And she ended up in a wheelchair because her mom told her, like, you can't walk. But when she became a teenager, she discovered it. She had the internet. She kind of like almost educated herself. And then this is I shouldn't give away the ending, but I mean, if you look it up, you'll find out right away. She got so sick of it that she had her mother murdered because she was like basically like felt like she was being imprisoned her whole life. But like now she's in the girl who was like had fake cancer, that was told by her mom that she had cancer, now is in prison because her mom, she got her boyfriend to murder the mother. It's a crazy story. It sounds like I'm making it up, but like how much of that do you blame? How can you really blame the girl who lived under these conditions for 20 years, got out by the only means that she could find? However, it's still murder, therefore she needs to be punished. But there's so much nuance in that. It's like, well, the mother didn't get any punishment from the government or anything because what she was doing was technically legal. And also she had a mental disorder that told her that she needed to do those things. So it's like, where does the blame lie? I have no idea. There's no solution.
Wow.
Yeah,
I'm
that's
wondering,
a crazy story.
This is, I'm just curious, like, obviously, like, we probably don't even have any sort of answer, but like, how they say that the placebo effect is real, and that you could potentially be taking a sugar pill but still like feel like
better.
your headache was gone or whatever. I wonder if in a situation like this where somebody just tells you the entire life and you believe in your bones that you have, I don't know what disease, if you could potentially just develop something like, I'm not sure how powerful that is. Obviously it would be interesting to find out if people knew how that works, because like,
Sure.
I can't imagine how, if you think you're depressed and you may not be, that you could potentially very easily become depressed just by thinking you are, like with that. But I don't know how it would work with like physical.
Well, with her in that case specifically, and I guess with Munchausen's by proxy, it's somewhat typical, is you go to the doctor and tell them like she has symptoms, the daughter had symptoms, and the treatment of that causes other symptoms. And then you go to a different doctor and say, don't tell them about what the other doctor is treating you for. You just say like, oh, she's nauseous. But the nausea might come from the treatment that she's getting at one doctor. Now she's going to another one saying she's nauseous all the time. They give her more medication that makes her groggy. Now she goes to a third doctor and says she's always groggy all the time. And then they keep giving more and more treatment. So all the medicine that you don't need is actually causing symptoms that is of the original disorder that you're saying that they have or whatever. So the fact that she's losing weight and she's like losing her hair, it's actually caused by the medication more so than her natural state. But because there are so many doctors, and the way in the United States, it's all private. So there's no communication between hospitals, between clinics, between whatever. So you could tell one doctor one thing and another one another thing, and they're not going to communicate and talk to each other. And there's been moves governmentally to change that, but nothing's happened so far at all. It's very, medical information is very private here. So, you can kind of you can get away with these types of things still right now if you decide to do this with a child. You could, which is scary.
That is awful.
Yeah.
What did you say it was called?
It's the Gypsy Rose saga, the Gypsy Rose story. But the documentary specifically is called Mommy Dead, Mommy Dearest. And it's a crazy, because it's such an extreme circumstance of what happened, that there was a murder. And then basically, so you're going to watch it, but after the mother was murdered, the girl was missing. So everyone thought that at first, that, this like armed intruder came in, killed the mother, stole the disabled daughter, and now she was like missing. Like they thought that, she was taken somewhere. But in reality, she was part of the mastermind of this plan, and her and her boyfriend, she just got up from her wheelchair and like went to a motel to like hang out with her boyfriend and have a normal life. They just thought that they were gonna just like walk up into the sunset and be fine.
Gosh.
Which didn't happen, obviously, but it's crazy. The whole thing is just insane. And you see her, she looks like such a little girl. She was actually like 20 something when the murder happened, and she looked like she was 13. And she was lied to about her age. She ended up finding her birth certificate later and found out she was actually much older than she thought. So she was also gaslit, because she thought she was like 10 and she was 15. So just stuff like that. Yeah.
Can you imagine losing 5 years of your life like that?
Yeah. And
that's
like,
insane.
Yeah, and she had a dad who she was told, allegedly, she was told that, the dad didn't want to see you. He's got his own life, whatever. But apparently the whole time he was trying so hard to get back in the daughter's life. And he kept being told by the mother, like, no, she doesn't want to see you. So that's part of it too, being isolated, like having only your mom to depend on. You don't hear any other inside information or outside information. She was homeschooled because of her medical issues. She had no other, like she had a friend who was a neighbor, and that partly got her to look on the internet, to like research some of this stuff and to find out herself. So a lot of people, there's like petitions to get her out of prison, because people think that, okay, she served several years already, like 10 years, so she should get out. Like it's been enough.
God.
And I kind of, I'm kind of on that camp where I feel like, okay, I think she served her time, because she didn't actually, she was the one who masterminded it, but she didn't actually stab her mom. She got her boyfriend to do it. So, maybe he should stay in jail, prison, but she should maybe get out now, because I don't think she's a threat to society. I think it was her mom that she wanted to escape from, and that's it.
That sounded like such a narcissistic thing as well, like just isolating someone and to be able to just manipulate them. And
it's very powerful.
Awful. Wow.
Yeah. And that's extreme.
I definitely give that a watch. That sounds.
Yeah. There's other Munchausen's by proxy stories and I haven't covered them totally on my channel, but there's other ones where the kids have died. They've been killed, and later on they find out that the kids never had any problems other than the over medication from their parents or whatever. So it's very rare to have Munchausen's by proxy, but there's been enough cases in the United States that, there's a trend. You can kind of see the signs now of what it looks like. And I think the internet has also made it so that people like send money to you. If you're like, my kids are sick. I mean, maybe they are, maybe they're not, but people send you money either way because they don't know. They can't really decipher it from your TikTok. So it's kind of like more incentive for people to lie. So it's very interesting to me.
I think it's particularly insidious with like things that are physical too, because like to some extent, mental health is a bit more invisible, and a bit. It's definitely invisible, and
Sure.
I feel like with physical things, because you will believe someone, if they tell you that, because it seems a little normal, I guess.
Yeah.
And to weaponize something like that, or not to weaponize, but to like profit off, to pretend and profit off of it, just seems awful.
Yeah. And it's also too, like, if you question somebody about it, you're kind of looked at as an asshole. And I face that sometimes where I'm like, well, I'm going to do it anyways if I feel strongly about somebody or somebody's claims. But it really is socially kind of like a no-no, because if you say you're sick, you're sick. If you say you have mental illness, you have mental illness. However, that gives a lot of people a lot of room to be deceptive. I
Do
think.
you get any comments about that? Do people like,
Sometimes not a lot, but sometimes. And I tend to agree. I mean, I err on the side of you shouldn't accuse someone of something unless you're pretty sure. And I'm usually pretty sure. And I try to use evidence that they've provided for themselves, like on their own pages. But I don't know for sure. And I try to make that very clear. Like, I don't have their medical records. They could be telling the truth. I have no idea. But here's where I question it. And I show like certain things that I find suspicious. But
yeah,
you can never know, because maybe they're just bad at telling how it is, or delivering their story. Maybe they're just, they're not great at it. So that's why it's coming off as odd. But there's way more people that I see that I'm suspicious about than I actually talk about. There's a lot that I'm like, I don't believe it, but I wouldn't spread that information unless I had more evidence. And then there's a whole other thing too. This is a whole other side tangent that we can talk about in the future. But do you know what like thought policing is? Like the idea of thought police? There's another good documentary if you have time. You're binging crime documentaries. There's one. It's called The Cannibal Cop, and it's a case out of New York City, and it's about this cop who was on message boards, kind of similar to what we were talking about with Creepshow art, where it was anonymous, like the people who make the website know, but the users don't necessarily know who you are. And he was on message boards for like torture and fantasies about that type of thing. And the cops found out, like the actual FBI found out. And so he got arrested, but he never committed a crime. He only talked about it, theoretically committing crimes. So that's a whole other thing too. It's like, well, how much leeway do you have to just talk about certain things or just proclaim certain things? Like, is that your freedom of speech, or is it now crossing into a deception? Because if you believe it, is it deception or is it not? So there's that whole thing about, if you don't actually commit a crime, but you're thinking about it, talking about it, planning it, is that still considered a crime? I don't know.
This is interesting because it makes me think of the Elizabeth Holmes thing.
Mm-hmm.
Have you been up to date on that?
I don't know if I'm up to date fully, but I know a lot about it.
Because like I find that to be interesting, because her main defense in that was that she just fully believed in the product.
Mm-hmm.
So when you do, like, is it really fraud if you do? Like, I don't know to what extent she's believed by. Oh well, actually, I think the process is over now. So I think she was condemned to something like 9 months in prison.
Yeah, which
But
is nothing.
well, and also it's probably rich people prison. So
Yeah,
I'm
and it'll probably
assuming,
be like, 2 months for good behavior, you're out, and now you're back to normal and
yeah.
no problems. Yeah.
But it's interesting because like the entire thing kind of focused mostly on just her defrauding like billionaires and stuff. So it's like, okay, so you had billions or millions and you spared some money, like,
Yeah.
so
Who cares? Yeah.
you have more.
Is it a
But
victim that you care about? I think that's what it comes down to. It's really like what you as a person find valuable. Like we're talking about
but
the
I
art.
think it's just that's the thing. I feel like the process didn't really focus on the fact that there were actual victims, like the people who did take the tests and who probably were misled, and they thought they
Yeah.
had something or they thought they didn't have something or whatever it is. Like, they lost time and money on those tests, but nobody cares about them. They just care about the billionaires that lost their money.
Lost their investment. And that's what investing is. It's a risk. It's a
Yeah.
chance. It's like gambling. You don't know. You're taking the word of some person. And
And
it's
if it
kind of,
wasn't for these investors, for these billionaires, um, probably there might be no process at all, because like that's the problem. We just upset the rich people. Like, we, you know what
yeah.
I mean? Like,
Yeah.
as long as you don't upset the rich, you're fine.
Yeah. Yeah, don't ruffle their apple cart. Otherwise, you're fine. Yeah, and
Yeah.
I think that with what was I say? I think that when it comes to investment and that sort of thing, and like, people just want to believe, they want to believe that they're smart, that they're picking the next Uber. So they'll convince themselves too that it's going to work. So everyone's deceiving themselves. Like, Elizabeth Holmes is deceiving herself that somehow a miracle is going to happen and this test that, is not going to work is going to somehow work. The investors are deceiving themselves when they haven't seen any results in 10 years. And they're like, well, it's going to work. Like, everyone's kind of got an inner deception because they want to believe that they wouldn't make a mistake as big as the evidence is showing. And so it's almost like, well, who's to blame there? I don't know. If you're deceiving yourself, it's like, isn't that kind of a punishment in itself? But then at the same time, it's like they
Yeah.
say, Thomas Edison. I always hear these motivational speakers talk about Thomas Edison. Thomas Edison broke 7,000 light bulbs before he made the first one that worked. So keep trying, and that's the sentiment. It's like, okay, well, she did that, till the very end. Is that a good quality? Like, she doesn't give up, or is that she's insane and deceitful and defrauding people? It could be
Yeah.
both.
Apparently, Thomas Edison also was somewhat of a scammer.
Right? Yeah, isn't it like Tesla was like the one who actually did most of the work, and then he took over or something, or there's some other person that he worked with?
No idea. I don't know enough about the subject, but it's just interesting. And also, I'm kind of really excited because a similar case, well, completely different like details, but like it's in the similar vein. There's a show that's going to come out on Netflix soon in February, called Inventing Anna, and it's about Anna Delvey, who essentially is this Russian woman who her real name was Anna Sorokin, but she would go by Anna Delvey and go to New York and essentially try to embezzle like banks and people and like she stayed in like really expensive
Okay,
hotels and didn't pay the bills and
I remember that.
yeah, so I actually have the book. I'm reading the book now. It's so interesting. I love it. And I find this like there's something in these stories, the Elizabeth Holmes story and the Anna Delvey story, that is just so fascinating to me. And I kind of low key really love them.
Respect it. I know, same.
Yeah.
I do
And
too.
it's like, it's so cool. It's kind of like a Robin Hood type situation, but without giving to the poor, just like giving it to
Giving to
yourself.
yourself. I think it takes such a confidence to deceive people like that so blatantly into their face. It really takes like a narcissistic personality type, not really a diagnosable narcissistic, but someone who's got very, very strong inner confidence to be able to say, like, yeah, my dad's a oil baron in Germany or whatever she would tell people, and then like get these rich people to just pay for her. But it's almost, again, they're deceiving themselves. They think that Anna is like a rich person that could help them out later in life. And they're willing to ignore all evidence pointing to the contrary to have the chance that they're going to get like some sort of leg up in the future. So it's almost like, who cares? Like, like, it's your fault. You were kind of being silly. Do I really like,
Yeah.
are you a victim that I care about? Not really. So I'm kind of like, yeah, I'm on Anna's team. But
Yeah,
also like, yeah.
she's like all over Instagram and she's posting that Inventing Anna is coming on. It's like it's amazing.
That's kind of the arc. I'm sure Elizabeth Holmes will have books and movies and she'll be fine. Like, she already has a movie, like Jennifer Lawrence is playing her. So, I mean,
Wait, really?
yeah, I
I
think
didn't
so.
know this.
I don't know when it's coming, but that's what I heard on some entertainment website. I think I saw it. I'm just making it up. I'm just deceiving you.
I know there's something from 2019, but I don't understand if this is the I don't know what this is. Oh, there will be one. Okay, Hulu. Okay, interesting. I didn't know this. This is exciting. Oh,
Yeah.
I'm definitely gonna watch that.
Same. I love all that stuff. And I think in a way she wanted to be like who's that guy who died? from Apple.
Apple. Steve
Steve
Jobs.
Jobs. She just wanted to be Steve Jobs, and she thought like, okay, I'll just do what Steve Jobs did, which is just push, 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 and she did. So it's like, I think sometimes you take the risk and it works out, and sometimes you take the risk and you become a Lifetime movie. But either way, you're probably going to be making money.
Fine. Yeah.
Yeah. So,
and I think it's interesting that she didn't actually have any medical studies or anything, and she just created this medical device. It's like you like how deluded does one need to be really to think they can create like a groundbreaking medical device when they have no medical training whatsoever. She
you know
has like
who?
something like bioscience or biomedicine, but it's not medicine.
And she
She
dropped
didn't.
out. Yeah, she
Yeah,
dropped out
she
of
dropped out
Stanford.
too in the second year. So
Yeah, so she probably got her like gen eds done. Like she took English 101 and then was like, I'm out of here. But who does deceive themselves is to tie this back into our content. People like fans of Rachel Hollis are the ones who do this stuff because they tell them, just believe and it will come true. All you have to do is manifest it and then you will have it. So what did these people do? They manifested these things, but in reality, you have to have some knowledge and background and understanding of the product to actually make it come to fruition. She manifested pretty good, a whole company of billions of dollars worth of value with literally no product. I mean, that is pretty impressive. However, the dominoes are going to fall at some point, and it did, obviously.
yeah.
But it is interesting.
Yeah, it's definitely tied to that hustle culture, and like the Stanford dropout who is too good for Stanford to keep studying. She needed to be free in order to embezzle all these people.
There's a thing I watched. You watch CoffeeZilla, right?
Not recently, but yeah,
Sometimes.
I know of him.
He did something. I think it was about Elizabeth Holmes actually, and he did something where it was like, in actuality, statistically, the better performing companies have CEOs who are like 45 and above, and it's a myth that there's these like unicorn CEOs that are like Mark Zuckerberg. He was like one out of every other company that exists that has become so successful. But we only listen to that story and think that that's the norm. Like every successful company comes from a 20-year-old CEO from his college dorm, where in reality, it's just pushed in the media so hard that we don't tend to look at the millions of other companies that are doing well that actually came from somebody that has like a background in that industry or training or whatever, and it's partly, again, like deceiving yourself to think like, oh yeah, Stanford dropout, that's exactly the type of person who would do well running a company. It's like, says who? Says like Bill Gates, but also you got to think Bill Gates lived in a different time. Like computers weren't what they are now. And yes, he's a very smart person, but it's also place, time, luck, resources. Then we forget about that. We're like, oh no, he dropped out of college. That's the key. Like that one factor that's really inconsequul. Like, oh,
Yeah,
he has brown hair.
We forget that these stories were so big in the media, or are still. If you come across a story like that, it will be viral because it's so unusual, because it doesn't happen. That's why they're sensational. It is a sensation. It's not an everyday ordinary thing that happens. But I feel like it has kind of created like a trend of like young entrepreneurs, and I've not been part of anything of the sort, but I don't live in like Silicon Valley, and I don't know, but like I've heard that this is like not not that it's like uncommon, but it's just there are like a range of young entrepreneurs. And even that guy, do you know that guy who worked with Tana Mojo on
Yes.
Michael something? I forget his last name right now, but
On
that guy,
Tanacom.
yeah, he is something like that. Basically, I was kind of shocked to be like, how did he do this at this young age? Oh, this is insane. And I remember talking to somebody on Instagram, and they were like, yeah, this just kind of like a lot of like young entrepreneurs or wannabe entrepreneurs on in Silicon Valley and stuff, and I think they're all this is
Mhm.
this is a wave because of the social network and like news of the sort.
Yeah.
Even Sophia Amoruso is something of that nature, but I feel like Sophia did
Mhm.
kind of know her industry.
Mhm.
um but I personally, having lived in Scotland, I did not really see like these bright minds that just took off. Like there were definitely like some people,
Yeah.
at least in the TV industry that I worked in, um, that were like doing really well, but
Mhm.
just not, it's not as common as people might think.
I worked for a startup, and it was a lot. And I kind of had this like rose-colored glasses, idealized version of startups. Like I thought of like, oh wow, like everyone's so cool and fun and excited about the product and whatever. And when you get in there, at least in my experience, I found it to be a lot of fluff, a lot of team building, because they didn't actually have a product that was worth creating. It was almost like trying to trick the employees into thinking that what we were doing was important. But in reality, it was like a basic ass thing that we were doing that other people have done for centuries. We were just putting like a little spin on it and saying, like, we're different. And it's like, no, we're not. We're basically a content creation company. We use tools that exist in the world, like WordPress and MailChimp. Like we're not like changing the society right now, but they make you believe that because they want you to stay for less pay, work more hours. And I think at least in the United States, like that is such a big thing right now, is like being your own boss. I think that's why MLMs kind of are still hot for whatever reason. It's like no one wants to be in the corporate grind 9 to 5 hating your life. So going for a startup or going to like an MLM, it's like a chance at freedom, but the chance of success is so low. But you think like you're the one that's going to make it, and it's like, no, probably not. And like I got laid off from the company because they were always in flux. They never actually produced, they never actually created money. They always just got investment money, and that's what they're still doing. And it's like, I mean, is that a company worth working for? Maybe, but like it never gets to the stage. I feel like it's just always perpetually in the investment stage. Like we're gonna make this, invest, invest, invest. But like actually producing what they say they are, it happens rarely. It's more rare for it actually to come to reality, in my opinion. And they say there's some statistic. It's like 80% of startups fail in the first 2 years. It's
Wow.
because everyone's trying to disrupt industries. And here's another point, not to go again off topic, but for example, some startups I don't think should exist. And they're trying to entrepreneurialize and modernize industries. Oh no, hold on. I'm still here. This is my camera died. Uh, Hold on. Hi guys, welcome to my channel. Right? Sit on a blank screen. Okay, I'm here. I'm back. Okay, hi. Um, I was gonna say that. Oh, okay. BetterHelp, right? I'm sure you've seen the ads for that. It's like the therapy app where you can text your therapist or whatever. That is the two creators of that are people who have worked in like tech website spaces before. I don't think necessarily that creating an app for therapy is a good idea. I don't think it's,
I agree.
maybe it's innovating the industry. I don't think it's going to help people ultimately. So it's like, okay, all this money is being poured into this app because you can scale it, you can monetize it, you can like get people in and out really quickly, you can get them to pay this, there's no insurance, like lovely. However, there's going to be a lot of people at the end of that day, at the end of it, where that are going to be hurting because they're not actually face to face with a therapist who's licensed and able to handle their case. And I feel like, but in America, at least, it's like, no, that should be prioritized because it can make money, as opposed to, oh, it actually helps people in the best way. And that kind of sucks.
Yeah. I don't believe in that either. I just don't think it's I just don't think it will essentially be as impact like the I feel like part of the reason I have a problem with it is because I think that therapy. I'm not in therapy. I should be. I can't
I
afford it,
am. Yeah. I can't
but I
either.
feel but I feel like therapy should like allow people should give people tools to and just strategies to be able to cope with situations. But texting your therapist is not a strategy.
Mm-mm.
That's because like once you stop paying for that service,
It's
who do
gone.
you text? Like
Yeah.
who like you need to know how to handle yourself, but they don't want to do that because then they lose a customer.
Mm-hmm.
So I feel like it's a very capitalist look at mental health again. Like actually
Yeah.
like this is like a large conversation, so I'd rather not go into it right now, but like I do
Sure.
feel like mental health has been a little bit like has become a little bit of a capitalist thing. I feel like I hear about going to
Mm-hmm.
therapy and paying for therapy a lot more than I would like to. I'm not saying that therapy is not good, for sure it is, but I feel like
Mm-hmm.
people are, I don't know if you've ever come across those TikToks, but there's people who are like, oh, I would only date a guy if he's in therapy, or like just maybe
Yeah.
they don't phrase it like that, but like, there's some of that conversation, and I'm a bit like, what? Like,
Yeah.
but not everyone needs therapy, and it's now pushed. I personally think I need it, and I just can't afford it. But not
I'm
everyone needs
torn.
it. Not
I'm
everyone is
torn.
mentally ill. So
Yeah.
I,
I
I
think
I feel like
everyone could benefit from it. I will say that. I think everyone could benefit from talking about their issues in a third party that's unrelated to your life. However, yeah, I don't think everyone needs, definitely doesn't need like very severe therapy, or like very, what's not severe, but what's the word? Like deep intrusive therapy. Some people might just need to like go once a month, once every 6 months, check up, whatever, just talk about what's going on. Intensive. Not everyone needs intensive therapy, I don't think. But I think everyone could benefit. I do think that if they went.
yeah.
Like, I don't think anyone would go and go like, this was a waste of time. It's like a workout.
Oh no,
Everyone
of
can
course.
benefit from working out.
I think the a problem I have with it is that again, it's something that is not free. You can't access it. So when people
Expensive.
are creating this rhetoric that unless you're in therapy, you're not like a
Yeah.
good enough partner, or you're not, I just feel a bit like I guess personally attacked a little bit, but also
Yeah.
um,
Personally
I'm
attacked,
definitely
yeah.
I should be in therapy, but also um, like it's not like a physiological need, or it's not
Mm-hmm.
like a basic need in life. You can, I believe that you can maybe get help some other ways. You can
Sure.
talk to friends, you can whatever. So I just don't think that the answer is always paying for something. So yes,
Yeah,
I
I agree.
understand. Oh, hey, RK. Uh, our first
Hello.
viewer. Hello, how are
Woo!
you?
We're famous. We did it, guys. We can
We
leave now.
made it. How are you, RK?
Welcome to our show. We're talking about mental health and the efficacy of should you date someone if they are not in therapy? That's the ethical question we're asking. I think, yeah, I agree. I think that's too extreme. I think anything that's too extreme, like I will not do this if this, like anything like that, I think is too strong. Oh, Logan,
Logan is the dog.
nice.
Yeah.
I'm not stoned,
Okay.
and I'm still finding it difficult to have this conversation.
It is a difficult conversation.
It's
I
important though.
definitely agree. If therapy was something that was like offered for free,
Mm-hmm.
freaking everyone go. Like I
Yeah,
don't care if you have
agreed.
problems or if you don't have problems. The problem is that they're mixing this in a capitalist thing where it's not
Yeah.
cheap. It's something like 50 to $100, and I don't know. You would tell me because you were going.
Well, okay, so my therapist is 150 an hour. However, I cannot afford that, and I told her on the first session because I got a reference from a friend, and they gave me like 3 different names, and she was the first on the list, so I just called her first. And she's like, I showed up, and we had like a little consultation about what was bothering me and whatever, and I said how much a month or how much a session? She's like, 150. I was like, okay, there's absolutely no way that I can afford that. I have no insurance. I work for myself. But I said, can we do this session at least so I can like kind of have something? I'll pay you the 150 and then I'll just figure out something else. And thankfully, at first she was like, well, are you religious? Do you go to church? I was like, no, like there's no services there. Sometimes the church will provide services or like synagogue, whatever. But I said, no, that's just not really what I'm interested in. And so then she came back later and said, okay, how about $50 a session? And I was like, okay, that's much better. It's still expensive for me. I go twice a week, every week, and it adds up. It's like $400 a month. So it's not nothing, but it's definitely better than $150 per session. And that's because I think with my issues that she thought I would need that much. And so she was willing to slide scale down because I was going to be going so often. And I've been going for over a year, still at the same pace. But yeah, I don't think everyone's got the issues that I have necessarily either. So like maybe some people would be already out of it and not having to go as much. But yeah, anything more than 50, there's no way. There's absolutely no way I could afford it.
$150 is insanely expensive in my opinion.
Yeah. And I have guilt a little bit about like, oh, she's like dropping her prices for me. I need to like make sure. Totally do. I totally do. I'm like, oh my God, like she's like so nice, or like the talk of money comes up sometimes. And I want to talk about like my finances with her, but I'm like, what if I reveal that I make too much? And she now wants to like put the price back up. But I'm like, I really do need to talk about money. Like I have issues surrounding it. I'm like, I need to discuss it. But yeah, I feel like, oh, maybe she'll be like, oh, actually it's $75 a month. I don't think she would. But
considering she asked like $150 per hour from a patient, excuse me.
Yes.
I'm pretty sure that
she's fine.
Is too much rather than yours.
With insurance, I feel like most people don't pay $150 out of pocket, like pay $50,
But then she gets paid by the insurance company, so it's still for her. It's still the same.
Yeah,
I'm assuming, or similar.
Yeah.
Let's see. RK says another problem with therapy is not only is it expensive, how often do you pick a good therapist first?
Yeah, rarely.
I don't know.
It took me a couple, and I saw someone I didn't like, and some people have preferences, whether it's someone who's a woman, man, someone who is in the LGBT community themselves. Like there's certain people who have certain standards for what they want in a therapist, with good reason, because some people go to a therapist that doesn't like if I was to go see a man, I might think like he doesn't understand where I'm coming from as a woman, of this age or whatever, because he's never experienced it himself. But I don't think that if there was one that like, I don't know, it's a trial and error. It's with anything. It's with going to a gym. Like I always compare it to like a personal trainer at the gym. Like there's a billion that you could go to. You're going to like one over the other, probably 9 times out of 10. There might be one you can deal with and they still get you in shape enough. But there's, some that you can't tolerate. And there's one that you would like absolutely love. And it's like spending the time and the money and the effort to find that one. But it is worth it, because once you find a good one, I feel like I found a great one. It does actually afford you the change that you're kind of hoping for, at least in my case. And I've gone to other therapists. I haven't talked about this on my channel yet, but I went to a life coach before, not really knowing the difference. And it led to a lot of issues. And it led to me almost needing to go to therapy immediately to like unwind my mindset that the life coach had damaged me by. And that's something I want to talk about on my channel at some point, kind of like my story about life coaching and how dangerous it can be, because there's like no regulations for them. They can just do and say whatever they want, essentially, because who's going to tell them not to? But it's not good. It could definitely hurt people and damage their psyche because like my life coach was telling me like that her and I were sisters in a past life and stuff. And I'm like, what? Like, okay. And, or like, I need to, use magic. And like, I was just like, what the fuck, and that was like, after seeing her for like a year and telling her like my darkest secrets. And I'm like, this woman's insane, and I'm like, oh my God. So thankfully I got out of that.
So what kind of things do you feel like the therapist managed to help you undo, essentially?
Well, honestly, and this is like, kind of personal, but I was very defensive of my family before, like very much wanting to repair the relationship I have with my parents, and really blaming myself for like everything that's gone wrong. And it's now I'm starting to see it from a different angle where it's like, I was a kid when I was going through this, and I really was not. I always saw myself as like my parents and me were equal always, and I was like just like almost like a third member of their relationship. And that now I see it as like, no, I was a kid and I had no control and no independence at that time. And it's like, I think it's coming up with my control issues of wanting to control things in my life because I didn't have control when I was a kid, but I thought I did. And now I'm starting to see like, no, okay, I need to like see them for who they are as people and understand like they're not going to maybe understand me ever. And that's okay. And being able to deal with the anxiety that comes from not talking to my family. Because I used to talk to my mom every day for like an hour plus for
Wow.
years. And now I haven't spoken to her in almost a year. And it's been such a
Oh,
huge
wow.
change, and it sucks and it's sad and it's like hard to talk about. But I also feel way more independent, way more empowered, able to like think for myself, do things for myself. And so I think that's would be impossible without therapy. And with the life coach, I talked about my mom a little bit, and she was very much on the team of like, just apologize and everything will be fine. And it was like, now I think about that, I'm like, bad advice. Not good
Yeah.
advice. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, definitely like family dynamics can be very difficult, especially when you grow up. And I feel like I'm probably like not even aware of what is going on in my thing. But it's for sure every time I spend time with family, it's like stressful. It starts off good, it ends off good, but like it's very
The middle.
stressful at the same
That middle
time.
part.
But
Mhm.
it's such a shame that you, because like the thing is, I feel like with life coaches it could be essentially like having a bad teacher. um
Mhm.
and for I studied languages, and I was always very focused on French since I was very young, like 3 years old or something. And
Mhm.
I had I have seen, throughout my studies and stuff, like people who just weren't good, who went on to become teachers. And I
Mhm.
remember some of my teachers that were extremely good. And I was like, oh my God, what if I was taught by these
A bad
guys
one.
that some of them probably studied with? And
Mhm.
basically, I think it's very hard to unlearn, because like it's when you're young, your brain absorbs information a lot easier, I believe. And I just
Yeah.
think that it's kind of an imprint, and then having to undo what you're taught. And I feel like that's probably what happened to you with the life
Mhm.
coach. Like you that's the first information that you, well, you first have the experience, and that's like, the bigger one. But
Yeah.
then the life coach teaches you whatever, and then it turns out that's also damaging, and that's also bad. And then
Mhm.
not only do you have to like address the initial thing that is huge, but you also
Yeah.
have to undo the stupid work that these life coaches have done. That's
Yeah.
like
Well, I hear a lot too from therapists that say like, not to bring her up again, I bring her up all the time, but like Rachel Hollis, like,
oh yeah.
these people get this information from life coaches or from these influencers about mental health. And then they go to therapy with this information and they have to undo that too and go, okay, no, waking up at 4 a.m. is not going to make you happier. You got to like deal with your issues and find out what works for you. Like, so it's like, it's almost extra work for the mental health professionals to undo the damage that has been caused by self-help books or influencers online or life coaches that you might have seen. And it's not common knowledge, at least to me, and maybe I'm just dumb, but like knowing the difference between which therapists and what schooling they have and versus life coach, because they all look very similar. And you could be a certified life coach. That means nothing. That's absolutely meaningless in any sort of educational sense. You like did a course, like you did a Udemy course, you could be a certified life coach. But a psychologist, a psychotherapist, a psychoanalyst, a life and marriage counselor, like those are all very different fields. But I didn't know the difference. I still barely know the difference. And I
Well,
was
wait a
seeking
minute.
help.
Our favorite, Rachel Hollis, wasn't she a marriage counselor at one point
No,
with our favorite Dave Hollis?
she
Yeah,
was
no, no,
on
no. They
a
had this
makeshift.
life. No, what was it called? Like I forget the name, but it was a marriage counseling retreat.
Mm-hmm.
Her and Dave were teaching people how to have an extraordinary.
No, she would tell you, well, we were just teaching by example. And you'd be like, oh,
Obviously, because they were so happy and
yeah,
so perfect.
yes. The
They
sex,
knew
sex
by
every day.
experience.
Yeah.
See
Daily
what
sex was the prescription.
life
Yeah.
coaching feels like a doctor on TV claiming they can perform real surgery.
Yeah.
Yeah, and imagine just my like first of all, my big problem is that these people are not educated in what they
Mm-mm.
are talking about.
No.
So they're only teaching people strategies that they have perhaps tried and have worked for them personally, for their
Maybe.
personality. Maybe,
Yeah.
yeah.
If that.
And oftentimes they don't even do what they preach. So um
Mm-hmm.
but also they address the masses are made up of people with their own mental health problems, their
Mm-hmm.
own personalities that are different. What works for me, like, and I'm sure you'll come across this in Dave Hollis's book with the in the Gary V thing with like
Oh, God.
imagining your family's getting shot in the face for free.
Yeah.
Like, obviously,
Universal advice.
while I think that might work for some, I'm not discounting this.
Yeah.
Perhaps some people are, yeah, maybe it works, but like it does not work for me. Like that will put me in a terrible mood for the
Yeah.
day. I'm definitely not going to be like grateful and happy to work that day as Gary would have me.
Yeah. And I think it comes down to people as humans, and especially consuming social media, and the way that we see these influencers the most is simplicity is best, like simple is best. So they'll just, there's no nuance. It's like this advice works for every single person with every single situation. Here you go. And people want that because it's the way that they're reading it on Instagram like this. It's like, picture your family dying and that will make you happier. Okay. And you scroll on, as opposed to like, okay, this is why I do it. And this is how I do it. And this is like the reasons behind it. It's like, no one's got time for that. You just got to
No,
get the
and
simplest
also
thing.
I just think um he wants to so he I've put two clips together in my video about him. They weren't like they were from completely different videos, but
Yeah.
in one video he says, imagine your family dying so that you're grateful, so you have
Mm-hmm.
gratitude, so anything that happens that day seems small in comparison, so you can handle a meeting because you just imagined your family dying, like
Yeah. No
a
big
meeting
deal.
is nothing.
Yeah.
That's like I don't think my brain works like that, but okay, I
Sure.
can see why that happens. But
Mm-hmm.
in the other clip he says, never take any weekends off, never this, never that. Like, if you have one day off this weekend, you already had more time off than he had in his entire 20s. So it's like, okay, so you want me to be grateful, not to go and spend time with those people that I just imagined dying. No, no, no.
Mm-hmm.
Be grateful so that I work and hustle harder.
Yeah.
Like, so he doesn't want to take time off. He doesn't want people to take time off and be grateful for that time off with family, whatever. Like, that's not the point. The
No.
point of this gratitude is to work hard
Mm-hmm.
so that you are a better machine
Entrepreneur of making
so that you're
content.
better for capitalism,
Yeah.
so that you make more money for the state, like
Yeah.
not for your family, not to, like, this is where I was like, oh my god, like it's just kind of like a moment where like the penny dropped and I was like, that's not the point of gratitude, Gary. Like, that's not at
Mm-hmm.
all the point of gratitude. The point of gratitude is to really just understand that it's the people in your life that matter most. Like, it's not working harder, building companies. It's like once,
Who cares? Yeah,
but then
like
he doesn't get it. Like
no.
he genuinely believes that this gratitude helps him work harder.
Yeah. I think
Like,
yeah.
no.
I think, and this is kind of my running theory about Gary Vee, is that he didn't get the love from his family that he probably wanted and needed because his dad was running the liquor store. And now he's trying to prove that he's okay by showing other people I'm okay. And I think that's what a lot of these influencers do. I think that's what Dave does. Like Dave's not okay, Dave Hollis, from the divorce. So he's going to write a book about how amazing he is after the divorce to prove to the world that he's okay. And same with Gary. Gary wants to be loved and have family and whatever, but he didn't get that as a kid. So he's going to tell people to ignore your family and keep hustling to make it seem like what he grew up with was okay. And I
Yeah,
honestly feel
like
bad for him.
imagine just, you must love your family so much that you imagine them dying, being shot in
It's
the
also
face.
like, okay, that part, and this is a great, I'm glad you brought that up again. He spends so little time with his family. He's picturing them dying every day, and this is how he chooses to live his time away from them. That's worse.
Obviously, he hates them.
Yeah.
He wants them dead
dying.
so bad.
He wants them dead, and he spends 24 hours on planes and in Ubers driving around freaking New Jersey to like buy like garage sale items. Like that's how you're gonna spend the last moments of your life with your kids and stuff. Like what? That makes no sense.
Yeah.
It'd be worse if he said like, I don't ever think about my family because like I know that they're good. So I'm just focused on this. That would be better as opposed to I care about them so much and yet I choose to never see them. It's
I
like,
care
okay.
about them so much that I will work really hard to never see them again. And I will daily imagine that they die.
Yeah.
You know?
I
Like,
will say though, I will say Gary Vee, I give him 100% props for never using his children as content.
yes,
Ever.
yes.
I
But
will
then he
say I
doesn't need
respect
to
him.
because he has like cameramen following him his every move. So he has like, and he recycles so much. This is
Oh
so
yeah.
so annoying. The
Mhm.
recycling of content. Like he has the same content on TikTok, YouTube. It's like I'm just so sick of it.
Yeah.
Just seeing the same thing over and it's starting to become one of my pet peeves with creators. I'm like, please don't just post the same content all over. Like that's
Yeah. Just choose
not the
one or
point of,
two.
yeah.
Yeah. He's gonna get stuck unless he innovates soon. He's gonna be old fashioned soon. And oh, what did he say? I used to listen to Gary Vee. So entertaining. Then I realized actually practicing his advice doesn't make me happy, so I stopped listening. Yeah, me too. I actually saw Gary Vee live in person because I was such a fan. And
Wow, really?
yeah, I'm telling you, I was like such a fan girl of all these people. But it's funny because the thing I went to, so he spoke in the morning, Gary Vee spoke in the morning, and then Tony Robbins spoke in the afternoon. But in the middle between the two of them, because those were like the two keynote people, in the middle there was like MLM salespeople and real estate scam salespeople, and you couldn't leave. So if you wanted to go home or like go to lunch and come back for Tony, they wouldn't let you back in. So basically, they forced you to sit in these indoctrinating like sales pitches for 6 hours, so you could see
Wow.
both of the people talk. So I left. I couldn't stand it. But I saw Gary, and it was very basic. He like has the same, like you said, the same lines like work hard, don't complain. I worked so hard. But the thing is, too, his dad had an asset of having the business, having him own it. If Gary worked so hard at McDonald's, he would be in the same position at McDonald's today. You know, it doesn't matter. He had an advantage because his dad had a business. Not everyone has that. Very little people have that as an opportunity. So he doesn't focus on that at all. And he says he was an immigrant. Yes, he was, but he was also 3 years old. So you weren't even really speaking yet. It's not as disadvantaged as someone who comes from Mexico at 20 and drops in and goes, okay, now I got to make it in the world. Those are incomparable stories, but he acts like it's the same. And that's to me disrespectful.
I think that his dad qualifies as an immigrant. I don't think he does because, like,
Yes, agreed.
you didn't immigrate at 3 years old. You were brought there,
Exactly.
and you grew up in American culture. So it's not really like
The
someone who,
struggle.
like his father or his family, having to adapt to a new culture. Like he just grew up in it. He didn't have to learn a new language, adapt to a new culture. Like those, that's when
Mhm.
people are talking about immigrants, that's what it means. Like you're
Yeah.
struggling because you don't know how these people talk. You don't know, just the cultural barrier is very high, the language barrier, all of
Mhm.
these things matter a lot. And basically, also, I just don't think he has any gratitude for his dad. I never
Mhm.
hear him say, "Oh, I'm so grateful that my father helped me," or whatever.
He did it himself. He's like, I bootstrapped myself. I took my dad's $1 million business, which is incredible to begin with. Like he had a multi-million-dollar liquor store to begin with, which is crazy. And he should talk about that more. He made it into a $60 million business, which is also very incredible. However, you can't just like compounding money is much easier when you have a million to start with,
Yeah,
especially in the beginning of Google ads. Like try to replicate that today. What would you do? You can't, because that was the beginning of the internet. And there's a
mhm.
lot of things that he was lucky in, that his dad had an asset that had money behind it. He started at the beginning of Google ads. He started at the beginning of YouTube. Like try to teach that to someone now. You can't. It doesn't exist anymore. So his advice now becomes more generalized of work hard, try hard, whatever. And it's like, it doesn't really land as much for me, at least. But
Yeah,
yeah, I was a big fan back in the day. And now I think also with time, you just start to realize that it's all the same garbage used over and over again. And it's like it
yeah.
takes you a year or so to like realize that, like, oh, I heard this in the last book. I heard this in the last podcast. I've gotten enough of that now. I need to find something else, or he needs to give me better advice.
The one thing I feel kind of is good about these motivational speakers is that they showed that there is a space on social media, on YouTube, and everywhere really for these people, for conversations about how to get better. Because like this is actually how you find them most of the time.
Mhm.
You either look out for information on how to get better from something like depression or whatever, or if you're in a rut or whatever, or if you want to start your own business or whatever, things
Mhm.
like that. They all, like all the results will bring you to motivational speakers. And
Yeah.
I have noticed recently that there's like at least, I have noticed at least two therapists from TikTok who are actual counselors, actual therapists who have education in this, are now stepping into the YouTube space. And I
Mhm.
think it's great that this is, they're going to replace people like Rachel Hollis. Because people, when Rachel
Yeah.
Hollis gives people advice on life, she doesn't know what she's talking about. But a
No.
therapist with some experience and with studies and stuff, they will at least know to some, like obviously it's still the same problem in the sense that they're talking to a lot of people instead of just one,
Sure.
but at least they're coming from an informed place, and they,
Mhm.
they can actually help some people. So I like that they created space for others to come and replace them. I feel like it's
Yeah.
the only thing that is good about it.
I think I did this podcast called Okayish, and it's a therapist, like an actual, like real therapist who does like a podcast where she talks generally about certain things, like around the holidays, things can be hard. She'll talk about that, or anxiety generally. But we did an interview about toxic Rachel Hollis stuff, and she said the majority of her time in school and therapy was learning about how not to re-traumatize people, because there's a certain way in which you can bring up things from the past safely, and there's things where they're gonna experience worse effects by talking about it if you're not careful. And she's like, it's incredible how many hours we spent learning that over and over and over again, practicing it. And these life coaches and motivational speakers just they don't even know what they don't know. They don't know that they could be potentially harming people, but it doesn't matter. You're still harming them potentially. So yeah, I think it's not like Rachel Hollis she doesn't even know that she doesn't know, because she never went to class to learn, okay, this is something that could happen if you say the wrong thing.
I spoke
She's,
to therapist, sorry, a hypnotherapist who is
oh,
one of my patrons
interesting.
recently. I wasn't hypnotized or anything. We just had a conversation.
Not that you know of.
Yeah. But basically, she and I we got to talking about Gary Vee, and I told her about this thing that he says that should imagine your family dying and stuff, and she said that's very damaging because apparently the way that memory works is that you have the original memory, and then every time you access that memory, you essentially remember less and less the original memory, and it's just like every time you access it, you have like a little add-on with your life
Mm,
experiences from that point when you access the memory. And
mhm.
that's kind of the way that you reframe memories and stuff. It was more complicated than that, but like I'm
Yeah,
not educated in this, so I can't really reproduce it the same way. But she was
sure.
saying that by thinking about the fact that your family is getting shot in the face for like so often, you could essentially create a memory, even if this didn't happen, that is
Mm.
a traumatized, like, it's like, Gary, just stop saying this
Just
to
be a little
people.
careful. Yeah, know that it could harm somebody.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because I think they think it's like, well, I'm helping people. And if they don't want the advice, then they don't have to take it. But at the same time, the way it's marketed towards them, that people who are looking for, I'm in a rut, I need help, I have depression, the fact that their video is being marketed towards those people is, irresponsible in some ways. And maybe it's not their fault, but maybe it is. Maybe they're putting depression in the title, or they're putting it in the keywords. And in which case, if that's true, then I would say, yeah, that's problematic,
Yeah. And
because
I also
that's
think that
manipulative.
some of these people pay for that. So
Mhm.
it's kind of problematic when you pay to be told that, because also when you pay for something, you feel like you've invested yourself. So you might as well just try the
Mhm.
strategies that they offer you.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
yeah.
And I think Gary, like, he's one, like, I give him credit for not using his kids. I do give him credit. I give him credit that he doesn't have paid courses also. However, like I said about that live event, that I went to, where I was forced to listen to real estate marketing for an hour, or other people listen to it all day. Um, that's your attention, right? That's like, that costs money for advertisers to have your attention, to put an ad out, to do a sales pitch in front of you. Like, that costs money. So he is using money to manipulate you. He is getting paid for these speeches. So he
Yeah.
acts like, oh, I just do it out of the kindness of my heart. It's like, no, you don't. And you're
No.
also hurting people potentially that could buy into a scam now, because they think that you're associated with it and that you approve of it. But I think he, in his mind, he kind of gets away with it because, like, well, I'm not charging them directly. It's like, but indirectly still is
Yeah, not to
problematic.
mention he gets clout and he builds his personal brand to the point where he will be paid, I don't know how much for a talk. So yeah, those things add up. Like it's not for nothing that he does it.
Yeah. You know who's a speaker under, because Gary has a speaker bureau now, or like a speaking group, is Tom Bilyeu from Impact Theory. I noticed he's a
That
Gary
guy
Vee speaker.
again. I hate him. I don't know why. I'm so annoyed with him. Like
I know. I
he's
know.
irritating.
He's so full of it. Like, he loves himself. He tries so hard, and I feel badly because I feel like he's never going to find the success that he's already found with
He's definitely
Quest.
never gonna find forever life. Like that doesn't exist, Tom. You
Yeah.
can't live forever. I'm sorry.
I know. I watched some interview with him. He's like, I finally come to the conclusion that I'm going to die one day. I'm like, okay,
Okay,
what is
Tom, we've
this?
known this since we were born. Thank
It's
you
like,
for bringing this up to our attention.
yeah, you're the first one to acknowledge this. Thank you so much. I mean, he's had an easy life too. Like, not, I shouldn't say that. No one's had an easy life, but he's had a pretty privileged life from what I can tell, from where he lived and went to high school and grew up and whatever. And a lot of his stuff was luck. But
Yeah,
I think he hates it. I think that's why he cannot accept that he had a lot of luck and good
privilege.
good privilege in his life. And so now he'll spend his life trying to prove that against himself. Like, no, it was my hard work, it was my determination, it was my genius, it was this, it was that, it was whatever. And he's going to continue to try to find that answer, which it's never going to be there.
He said he wants to rival Disney as a company. I'm like, wow, okay.
Well,
Yeah.
he's Mr. NFT now, which is like so annoying on its
Why
own.
is
Like,
Disney is that something Disney didn't get on? So
I
he's
guess he's
found
like,
a little
oh
loophole.
my god, there's like on his website, it shows like how his company's broken up. And it's like so weird. It's like Santa Claus NFTs, mind-changing life advice. It's like, what? Why does that equate?
Well,
It's all under the same umbrella, like Santa Claus in a GIF. Also, why you should, fast for 100 days. Okay, I don't know.
I feel like we need to change the thumbnail of this.
I know.
I think after the stream, I'm gonna go ahead and change it because
Yeah. We talked about a
it's just
plethora of topics.
very little about Creepshow,
I know.
very much about
Sorry,
other
Creepshow.
people.
We've moved
Sorry,
on.
Shannon.
Yeah. Sorry about that, folks. For our 3 fans watching.
Sorry, RK, I guess, because it's our only watcher. I'm gonna have to go because it's like I'm starving. It's 8 p.m. here.
It's 1 o'clock here. It's
Really?
Like lunchtime now. Yeah.
You have all day ahead.
That's
I
true.
have nothing.
Your day is done.
It's over.
Well, this worked at least. I'm really glad that the technical part worked and that
Yeah.
I think we're good. I think we
Yeah,
continue to do this.
So should we let our viewers know? I'm lifting your watch now for sure. Like you're all our watch time right now.
Thank you.
Basically, we're gonna do this every Thursday at what time did we say?
Well, your time, so Eastern Standard Time, it'll be 11 or 12
11?
or 1. I don't know. Oh my God, we have to talk about it.
We need to know. It'll be on Thursdays.
What time is it for you in Romania?
Right now it's 8 o'clock. So
what time do you get back from the gym?
7.
Okay, so we said like 8:30 for you.
So or 7:30. Or so maybe start now. We should start now, which means that what time is at your place?
It's 1:10 right now. So maybe we
Okay,
start at
so
1:30.
We can start at 1 or 1:30. Yeah.
Okay, Eastern Standard Time, so New York time.
Yeah.
Perfect.
So we'll decide. We'll decide later and get back to you, RK.
We're obviously very prepared and scheduled out for months.
I hope you've subscribed, okay? Because we need.
We're the only 2 subs right now. Yeah. And we'll talk about topics like this, I would imagine. And basically, it's called. I was going to say confluence, but it's Cringe-Fluence. Cringe-Fluence. So we're going to talk about cringy things that people who influence us do and
I
say.
think we did a good thing by not going with confluence because I think, I'm looking it up right now, but I think Mike Quinnett had something.
Confluencer?
Yeah. Entrepreneur. Oh, no, we could go with confluence if you want.
Too late. We already got the Gmail.
Too late, yeah.
I like cringe. I like cringe because what's his face? Tiny Meat Gang did cringe. That's so cringe, and everyone loved it. So I feel like we could do something like that.
Yeah. No, I like Cringe-Fluence more actually.
Okay.
That's good. Okay.
Yeah.
I'm gonna have to leave you.
Okay.
But
it was great seeing you.
It was great. And sorry for the previous 1 hour
that no one saw. That's okay. We got the kinks out of that one.
Yeah. Cringe gives you more options. Yeah.
That's true. That is true.
Thank you, RK, for watching. And
thanks for participating.
On Thursday at 1 or 1:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time.
Perfect. And then you can watch it on replay.
Yeah.
Watch anything after that.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. I'm gonna have to change that thumbnail because
yes.
You're welcome, RK.
You're welcome. Nice chatting. Okay. Goodbye. See you soon.
Bye.